Hey guys, well, we've got a bit of a problem. This window's down. Well, you say, put it up. Yeah, I tried that. This window goes down, it doesn't go back up again. Now, I never use the back windows on this because I remember when I bought it quite some time ago that they did have trouble going up and down. I can't remember which ones because it's been a couple of years and I really don't use these back windows. This blue truck was the spare truck for our spare truck, and it really wasn't even supposed to be being used, but since my main truck is broken and has been for quite some time, this became my daily driver, and it has been now for a while. And actually, aside from the fact that it's a little bit slushy in the auto, it's pretty good. I don't mind driving it. The heat is a bit rubbish, so Nikki doesn't like driving it at all. But, I mean, it goes. It's probably the most economical one we've got. Mine's been chipped, so that's no surprise. It's certainly more economical than the D3. That's also been chipped, so no surprise there. But it goes really well. But we have this problem. So let's fix it. Yeah, that's another problem that needs looking at. If we look at the obvious things first, definitely does nothing. Down, we can hear it trying to do something. Up, nothing. Two front windows work perfectly good. I can hear a click with the down, but I got nothing on the up on either back window. I'm not going to try putting the other one down. I don't want to have to do that too. So these work pretty simply. The motor, standard DC motor, that when you put voltage on it, if you put it one way around, the motor will turn. If you reverse the voltage, then the motor will turn the other way. That's all these switches do. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly talk about how the circuit works, and it's quite interesting. If you haven't seen this kind of circuit before, it may be a little bit confusing at first. These two feeds in here are positive. They're actually connected. That's plus 12 volts being fed into both switches. This is the console switch, and this darker bit shows how the switch is actually connected when you're not touching it. So we've got 12 volts coming in through here, goes out. This is the wire that leads from the console to the back door. Here's the back door switch. It runs through the back door switch. Excuse us, I'm using a mouse and just trying to highlight where the voltage is going. Goes through this switch, which is closed, comes out and to the motor. So in its resting state, the motor has 12 volts being fed to it, which could be a little bit confusing, and it might get a little bit worse before it gets any better. But we come out the other side of the motor, we come out through the grey wire with the red trace, back through this switch, back up here, down here, through this switch, and back to 12 volts. So the motor has 12 volts applied to both sides of it. Now, voltage makes things work by creating a potential difference between 2 points. That's what voltage is. It's a measurement of the potential difference between 2 points. And the potential difference between this point here and this point here is 0. They're both at 12 volts. So there's no difference, there's no actual voltage across the motor. So the motor will not spin. Now what happens when we push one of these switches? Let's say we want to put the rear window up. That means this is now here. So any voltage that's coming through stops there. This is no longer connected. On the other side, we've still got 12 volts running through here, through all the way through here. We haven't touched the rear switches, we're just talking about the console switch, so that's still in that position. We're going through here, through the motor, out through this switch, back through the loom, and at this point we're now going through the switch which we've put down, We could go down to here, but that's not connected, doesn't go anywhere. We'll follow this wire, boom, and this takes us to this earth point here. So now we've got 12 volts here and we've got 0 volts here. We've grounded this side of it by pushing this switch down. So now we have a potential difference of 12 volts. The motor's going to run. And remember that the 12 volts is on this side, so it's going to make it run in a certain direction. If we push the up switch, that's this one here, and you can probably already figure out what's going to happen, but this is now disconnected. There's no 12 volts coming in here, so the 12 volts now goes this way, through here, boom. We've now got 12 volts on this side of the motor, and this side, I haven't touched these switches as I said. This side is now connected up this way, and again back to 0 volts. So now we've got the motor connected the other way. We've got that potential difference of 12 volts, so it's going to run. And in the same way, the rear switches are going to work. So remember, if we don't touch the front switches, both of these wires here, 12 volts. So if we try to put the motor, the window down here, we've got 12 volts coming in here and going nowhere, but we have 12 volts coming in here. So we've got 12 volts here through the motor. Now we know that that's now connected this way, and we can follow this back. Now this just runs to the other side, the other door, but we go into here, we've got our isolation switch, and all the isolation switch is determining whether we can get to ground or not. So when it's closed, we can get to our ground here, right? So that's the button in the center console that stops people in the back seat being able to use their windows, presumably to stop small children from winding the window down and then jumping out the window. I've never had a small child do that in any of my vehicles. I have had a dog do it. My dog Puff, many years ago, pushed the rear window on my Surf Open and jumped out at about 70 kilometers an hour heading up State Highway 1. One of the most terrifying things I've seen in the rearview mirror. Very ball of fluff rolling down the road. Story for another day. And I'm not going to do it the other way around. You can see how this works. It's basically the motor has 12 volts on both sides till you push a switch, and that switch sends 0 volts instead of 12 volts to one side or other of the motor. And so if you have to troubleshoot this, it shouldn't be too difficult to actually find out where the 12 volts stops or where the 0 volts stops. The color code is grey. They refer to as slate, so S for slate, Y for yellow, R for red, O for orange, G for green. Black wires are generally earth. So we can actually trace this right through and figure out where the fault lies. Of course, for now, what I need to do is actually just get the window up before it rains. The simplest thing to do to get the window back up is pull the door card off and actually power the motor directly, and that's what I'm going to do because I don't think I'm going to find the solution in here. I suspect, given the age of this truck, it's got 438,000 Ks on it, that someone has tried to fix this before, and I suspect that it's going to be a wiring fault somewhere, and I'm not going to find it in an easy way. Alright, let's get that back door apart. Alright, so these door cards are held in with 3 screws and then a bunch of push clips. I don't know how many of the screws are actually still in here. I guess we'll find out. That one's still there. Posi. This is a Posi driver. If you don't know the difference between Phillips and Posi, then plenty of videos on the internet about that. They're not interchangeable. People use them interchangeably, but the design of the tips is different. Effectively, Phillips has a tapered blade, 4 tapered blades coming into a point. Posi has 4 parallel blades coming into a point. And using the wrong one can damage the screw head, so try and use the right one. Okay, 3 screws out, then just use your favourite trim tool. Oh, someone's put a screw in there. This is not a factory option as far as I'm aware. Yeah, so that screw is not supposed to be there. Not a factory option at all. Get that screw out before we lose it. A bit of mud in that hole. Mud daubers perhaps. Don't forget to take this. Right, so it's clearly been apart before. Disconnect the speakers. These will normally tell you the trim colour as well. Dark Smokestone. That's the interior trim on this. So just want to get to the motor. Which is here. That's the wiring for our motor. And so if we put 12 volts on those 2 pins in there, we'll get either an up or a down motion. So let's grab a battery and some clippy leads, see if we can't get that to do the right thing. Alright, so just going to use some jumper leads to get us up to the ballpark of where we're working. We're not being fancy here. So here's the plug. Okay, so that's worked. It's got the window back up. I should probably leave this unplugged, which will stop me from accidentally winding it down again. I would like to find out what the problem is, so at some point I'll try and figure that out. Alright guys, so the takeaway from this, because I'm not going to get into the center console at the moment, if you've got a window that's down, this is the first place to check. Right, it's the easiest way to get it back up, and you can normally jerry rig something. I mean, you've got a car, so it doesn't matter where you are. I have actually had to do this very repair on the main street of a little central Otago town. The window went down, it wouldn't come back up again. I didn't have the tools or equipment to actually figure out what the heck was going on. What I did have was a bit of number 8 wire just in the back of the vehicle, because it's New Zealand and that's what we do here. I managed to basically bend that and break it in half and use it as 2 bits of wire. I took the battery out of the truck, took the door off. I had a screwdriver. That's really the tool you need, and the only tool you need, a posi drive screwdriver, Phillips in a pinch. Even a small flat blade in a pinch will get a posi drive or a Phillips screw out, as long as the blade is narrow enough to actually fit into the cross. Get the door card off, unplug that plug, it hides behind where the bottom speaker goes, and just feed voltage onto the 2 pins. If the window goes in the wrong direction, reverse the pins, the window will go back up. That's assuming your regulator's not broken. Now, I've had a few broken regulators as well, but what tends to happen with those is the window's all over the place. It'll try to go up and you'll hear the motor going, but it won't actually rise. So if that's the case, there's no point pulling this apart on the side of the road. In that particular situation, what you want to do is actually grab the window in your hands while pushing the button or getting someone to push the button and just force it up, and your extra action pulling the window up will actually help it close. If you've got some duct tape, throw it over the top of the window onto both sides of the glass, then you'll need to get a new regulator. I have tried to fix them in the past. They're generally not repairable. They're not expensive either. So the last ones I bought was, well, before the whole world got so I don't know what the freight charges are going to be now. It wasn't too bad back then. LR Direct would sell them out of the UK for like 40 or 50 bucks for a regulator, I think, from memory, plus a bit of shipping. They're not hard to change over. You've got to strip the door down to here and then undo a few bolts, put the new one in, do the bolts back up, slap the door card back on, and you're done. It's not that easy, but it's not that hard either. So, you know, certainly maybe a 1.5 banana job. So if you've got the motor running and the window won't move, it's probably the regulator. If you've got like what I've got here, where the button just does nothing, you hear nothing, no clicks, nothing, then there's something wrong in the circuitry. We'll find that another day. The important thing for now was to get the window up so that tonight when it rains, my car doesn't fill with water, which it does anyway because it's a Land Rover and the front windscreen leaks like a sieve and the bottom of the floor gets quite wet, the headlining gets quite wet. That's a whole nother issue, and I may address that in another video, but for now we're watertight again. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea. Hope you guys had a great day. Hope this was useful. Follow along because I'll do more repairs on Land Rovers as I go. I've had them for a few years. I know the things that break. I was going to do one on the tailgate because the tailgate was sticking and I couldn't open it, but then it started opening again and it hasn't done it since. Really simple fix. Pop the badge off the handle, spray CRC in it, solved. It'll be a 2-minute video. If it happens again, I'll video it. Otherwise, now you know. Anyway, have a great day. I'll catch you later. I was going to say something. Was it important? Probably not. It's going to bug me though. Anyway, see you later.